For decades, fans believed Star Trek was a tale of teamwork and exploration, but William Shatner is finally revealing the chaos behind the cameras. Fistfights, sabotage, and feuds weren't just part of script. They were happening on set. Why did one iconic scene almost cause the cast to walk off? And what secret decisions turned Shatner into the most hated man on set? Stick around, because this isn't the Star Trek story you grew up with. William Shatner's life began in Montreal, Canada, on March 22, 1931. His birth itself was dramatic. Montreal was buried under a record-breaking snowstorm at the time. Roads were so bad that his mother had to give birth at home. It was almost as if his life was meant to start with a big story. From a young age, Shatner showed a love for acting. At just 8 years old, he joined an acting school run by a well-known Canadian actress. By the time he was 10, he was already acting professionally. His first role was in a radio show called The Magic Flute for CBC. A couple of years later, he played Tom Sawyer in a local theater production and received high praise. People said he had a stage presence far beyond his age. It was clear early on that Shatner had something special. In 1948, Shatner started studying at McGill University. He wasn't the best student, and he even admitted later that he hardly went to class. But while he struggled with academics, he thrived in the school's theater scene. In 1950, he wrote and performed in a student play that became a huge hit. It even got attention from CBC, where Shatner made his first TV appearance. In 1956, Shatner decided to take a big risk and move to New York City to pursue acting full-time. His first big opportunity came when he landed a role in the Broadway play Tamburlaine the Great. It didn't last long, closing after only 20 performances. Still, for a young actor with no formal training, it was a big step forward. After Broadway, Shatner started appearing on television in the late 1950s and early 1960s. He was everywhere. Shows like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Defenders, and The Outer Limits kept him busy. But it was The Twilight Zone that really stood out. In 1960, he played a man obsessed with a fortune-telling machine in Nick of Time. Then in 1963, he starred in Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, where he played a man terrified by a strange creature on the wing of an airplane. These roles showed how good Shatner was at playing characters on the edge of panic. In 1963, Shatner nearly became a TV star in a very different way. He starred in a pilot for a show called Alexander the Great, where he played the famous conqueror. Adam West, who would later become Batman, was also in the cast. The pilot focused on the Battle of Issus, showing Shatner's Alexander leading his army against the Persians. But the network decided not to pick up the show, and the pilot wasn't released until 1968 as a TV movie. If the show had gone forward, Shatner's career might have taken a completely different path, one that might never have led to Star Trek. In 1966, William Shatner became Captain Kirk, but getting the role wasn't straightforward. Originally, Star Trek had a different captain. Jeffrey Hunter starred in the first pilot, The Cage, as Captain Pike. NBC rejected the pilot, saying it was too slow and intellectual. But instead of canceling the show, they did something unusual. They asked for a second pilot with a new lead. This is how Shatner got his chance. At the time, Shatner was in New York, working on other projects. He got a call to watch the rejected pilot. He liked the quality of it, but felt the actors were too serious. Soon after, Hunter decided not to return. Officially, it was because he wanted to focus on movies, but Shatner later hinted there might have been more to the story. Whatever the truth, the role of the captain was now open, and Shatner stepped in to fill it. Shatner knew he had to make Captain Kirk stand out. He wanted Kirk to feel curious and full of wonder, like someone genuinely excited about exploring the unknown. At the same time, he wanted Kirk to be relatable, like a relaxed leader on a ship. He imagined Kirk as someone who could say, "Hey George, turn left," instead of speaking in stiff, formal commands. This mix of confidence and approachability made Kirk feel real and helped the audience connect with him. To shape Kirk's personality, Shatner took inspiration from two figures. One was Horatio Hornblower, a famous naval character known for his bravery and intelligence. The other was Alexander the Great. Shatner had played Alexander in a TV project 2 years earlier and brought some of that energy to Kirk. Shatner also added humor to Kirk. He felt the first pilot was too heavy and wanted to lighten things up. This humor gave Kirk more depth. He wasn't just a serious captain. He was someone who could laugh, make jokes, and connect with his crew on a personal level. This balance of humor and strength made Kirk a character people loved to watch. One early episode really tested Shatner's acting. Kirk's personality was split into two halves, one good, one evil. Shatner had to show both sides of Kirk, and he did it in a way that revealed the complexity of the character. During this episode, something unexpected happened. Nimoy came up with the Vulcan neck pinch, a move that became one of Spock's signature traits. And this was not the only creativity from the cast. William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy often rewrote scripts together, which led to both creative magic and big problems. In 1967, during The Trouble with Tribbles, they spent 14 straight hours changing dialogue, especially for Kirk and Spock. This frustrated the episode's writer, David Gerrold, since other characters' lines got cut. Their constant rewriting became so common that by the third season, the rest of the cast jokingly called the show The Shatner-Nimoy Show. But wasn't always a joke. On March 8, 1968, while filming The Paradise Syndrome, Shatner and Nimoy had a heated argument with the director. Shatner wanted Kirk's memory loss scene to be dramatic and intense, while Nimoy thought it should be more subtle. The fight delayed filming for hours until producer Gene Roddenberry stepped in to calm things down. These kinds of clashes showed how much their rewrites affected everyone on set. Shatner's behavior didn't just upset writers and directors. It sometimes caused trouble with the cast too. One infamous moment happened on September 15, 1966, while filming The Man Trap. Shatner thought Nimoy was hogging the spotlight, so he walked into Nimoy's camera shots over and over, 17 times to be exact. This forced retakes and caused so much tension that Nimoy threatened to walk off the set if it didn't stop. Another big moment came in Plato's Stepchildren in 1968, which included a groundbreaking interracial kiss between Kirk and Uhura. Shatner worried about how audiences would react and asked to film a version where the kiss didn't happen. But Nichelle Nichols, who played Uhura, believed the kiss was important to ensure the producers couldn't use the non-kiss version. She and Shatner messed up every take without the kiss, leaving the studio no choice but to use the real one. That moment became a piece of TV history. Filming Star Trek was tough on everyone. Days often stretched to 16 hours or more. The most exhausting example came in 1967 during The Doomsday Machine, when the cast and crew worked 22 hours straight to finish the episode. Shatner usually started his day at 5:30 a.m. for makeup and wouldn't leave until after midnight. The long hours eventually got to him. On October 3, 1968, while working on The Tholian Web, Shatner had a meltdown after 18 hours on set. He threw his script and refused to keep going until he got a break. This led to a new rule requiring rest periods, but the intense schedule never really let up. All this work came at a huge cost to Shatner's personal life. His first marriage to Gloria Rand fell apart during Star Trek. In a 2018 interview, Shatner admitted he missed 217 family dinners over 3 years, including his daughter Leslie's 5th birthday in 1968. He even skipped Christmas Day in 1967 to film reshoots for The Gamesters of Triskelion. Gloria grew more frustrated, especially when he missed their daughter Elizabeth's school play on April 12, 1968, because of yet another rewrite session with Nimoy. By June 1969, shortly after the show ended, Gloria filed for divorce, saying his constant absences and emotional distance were too much to handle. Shatner later said he regretted missing so much time with his family, including 47 weekends with his children during those years. When Star Trek ended in 1969, William Shatner's life changed completely. The show had a small but loyal fan base, but it wasn't enough to keep going. Once the show was canceled, Shatner struggled to find acting work. People couldn't see him as anyone other than Captain Kirk, and this made it almost impossible for him to land new roles. Just a few years earlier, he was seen as a rising star, even called the next Marlon Brando. Now he was out of work and unsure of what to do next. In the early 1970s, things went from bad to worse. Shatner had to take whatever roles he could find, even if they were in low-budget films that didn't help his career. He appeared in movies like Big Bad Mama, The Devil's Reign, and Kingdom of the Spiders. These weren't the kinds of projects he wanted to do, but he needed the money. People started to see him as just a sci-fi and horror actor, which made it even harder for him to break out of the typecasting that had followed him since Star Trek. With no steady income, he struggled to support his 3 daughters, who were living with their mother in Beverly Hills. Shatner was so broke that he ended up living in a camper in the San Fernando Valley. He later called this period of his life simply that period because it was so hard for him to talk about. The once famous actor was now homeless and doing whatever he could to make a little money to make ends meet. Shatner took any job he could get, even if it was embarrassing. He would appear at small parties or events just to earn a few dollars. One Christmas, he didn't have enough money to buy presents for his daughters. Instead, he wrapped up things he already owned, like his Star Trek phaser, and gave them as gifts. It was a sad and humbling time, but Shatner never gave up. Then, in 1979, everything changed. Star Trek was brought back as a film, and Shatner returned as Captain Kirk with a $35 million budget. The movie was one of the most expensive films ever made at the time. Originally, Paramount had planned a new Star Trek TV show, but when Star Wars became a massive hit in 1977, they decided to make a movie instead. At first, Shatner wasn't sure about coming back, but a big paycheck and some control over the script convinced him. At 48 years old, he worked hard to get in shape, losing 25 pounds through strict dieting and exercise. Filming, however, wasn't easy. The script kept changing. Sometimes on the same day scenes were being shot. Shatner often clashed with the writers and the director, pushing for ideas like a scene where Kirk does a daring space jump. Unfortunately, the budget and safety concerns stopped it from happening. Despite the struggles, the movie premiered in December 1979 to much fan excitement. Shatner's performance as Kirk was praised for staying true to the character while showing more maturity. The film made $139 million worldwide, which was good, but it wasn't a runaway hit. Things changed with the next film, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, 1982. It had a smaller budget, but became a massive success, earning $95.8 million. And being hailed as one of the best in the series, the Star Trek movies grew into a huge franchise with 13 films released between 1979 and 2016. However, the impact of Star Trek wasn't just about ticket sales. Lines like "Beam me up," "Scotty," and "Live long and prosper" became part of everyday life. The series even inspired real-world technology, such as a contest to create a working medical tricorder. Behind all the success, though, things weren't always smooth. One of the biggest challenges came with Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, 1989, which William Shatner directed. He wanted the crew of the Enterprise to go on a deep and meaningful journey to search for God, but the studio didn't like his plan and made him change it. Years later, Shatner admitted he wasn't ready to handle such a big project, saying, "I failed. In my mind, I failed horribly." That failure stayed with him for decades. The movie's problems started early. Shatner had imagined a grand finale where giant rock creatures would emerge from a mountain. However, creating those creatures was too expensive. Each suit for the creatures cost $250,000, and making 10 suits was impossible with a budget, so the scene was cut down and ended up looking cheap and unconvincing. Additionally, the best special effects company, Industrial Light and Magic, couldn't help because they were busy with other big movies like Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. Shatner had to hire a smaller team for the effects, but their work didn't meet the quality fans expected from a Star Trek film. Making the movie was also tough due to tensions among the cast. George Takei later said that Shatner felt insecure about how much attention Leonard Nimoy's character, Spock, received. Fans loved Spock's mysterious nature, and Shatner felt overshadowed. These tensions made it harder for Shatner to balance being both the director and the star of the film. He did try to give other characters their moments, such as Uhura's fan dance and Scotty's jailbreak scene, but those moments weren't enough to save the movie. It cost $33 million to make, but earned only $63 million worldwide, a far cry from success. After Star Trek, William Shatner's career took an unexpected turn. In 1982, he starred in the police drama T.J. Hooker. This was a big shift for him, as he played a tough and determined police sergeant named Thomas Jefferson Hooker. At first, Shatner didn't even want the role, turning it down 3 times. However, the show's creator, Rick Husky, rewrote the pilot script to better suit Shatner, and it worked. Shatner eventually accepted, and the show became a huge hit, with up to 20 million people tuning in each week. One reason for the show's success was Shatner's dedication. He insisted on doing his own stunts, even the dangerous ones. In one scene, he hung from a helicopter 2,000 feet in the air. This commitment to authenticity didn't come without a cost. He got injured several times, including breaking a rib and getting a concussion. The show also introduced Heather Locklear, who joined in the second season. Her chemistry with Shatner on screen was a big draw for viewers. Off-screen, Shatner became a mentor to Locklear, helping her handle fame as her career took off. T.J. Hooker wasn't just popular on TV. It became a cultural phenomenon. There were action figures, a board game, and even a comic book based on the show. Shatner's portrayal of law enforcement was so convincing that he was invited to speak at the FBI Academy in Virginia. This experience even influenced his later work on Boston Legal. In 1997, Shatner took on a completely different role as the face of Priceline.com. This started as a 6-week deal where he played the negotiator, a quirky deal-making character. The ads became wildly popular, and his partnership with Priceline lasted 22 years. At one point, Shatner chose to be paid in stock instead of cash. When Priceline's stock skyrocketed, his shares were reportedly worth $600 million. Shatner has never confirmed whether he sold them, but it added to the legend of his business savvy. The Priceline commercials became famous for their humor and creativity. One ad in 2012 shocked viewers when Shatner's character died in a bus explosion, an idea that actually came from a dream Shatner had. Over the years, he filmed more than 100 commercials for Priceline, including a memorable one in 2019 where he negotiated deals on an alien planet, a nod to his Star Trek roots. Shatner's role as Denny Crane on Boston Legal from 2004 to 2008 marked one of the biggest comebacks in TV history. At first, Shatner didn't want to take the role, thinking it would be too much work at his age. He was 73 at the time. However, the show's creator, David E. Kelley, convinced him by promising to tailor the role specifically for him. Denny Crane was a larger-than-life character, known for his eccentric behavior. William Shatner improvised many of the character's funniest moments, and his catchphrase, Denny Crane, became iconic. The writers even left space in the script for these Shatner moments, a key part of the show's success. The friendship between Denny Crane and Alan Shore, played by James Spader, was a cornerstone of the series. Their late-night balcony conversations with cigars and scotch became a signature element of the show. These scenes were often filmed late at night, giving them a dreamy, intimate feel. Shatner's performance earned him 2 Emmy Awards, making him the oldest actor to win in a dramatic role. Shatner's creative journey didn't stop there. His music career began with the strange spoken-word album, The Transformed Man, in 1968, which has since gained a cult following. But in 2004, he surprised critics with Has Been, an album produced by Ben Folds that showed real musical depth. One track, Common People, became an unexpected hit, and Shatner even performed it live at the Glastonbury Festival at age 74. As an author, Shatner has written over 30 books, including the best-selling Tech War series, which inspired a TV show, comics, and a video game. He's also written about the connection between science fiction and real science in I'm Working on That, where he interviewed scientists like Stephen Hawking. In 2016, Shatner released Leonard, a heartfelt memoir about his friendship with Leonard Nimoy. The book revealed how close they were, but also shared the sad truth that they had a falling out before Nimoy's death, a story that touched many fans. Even at 90, Shatner hasn't slowed down. In 2020, he released The Blues, an album featuring collaborations with well-known musicians. He also reflected on his life and career in his 2022 book Boldly Go, Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder. The book included stories about his 2021 trip to space with Blue Origin, proving that Shatner is still exploring new frontiers both on and off the screen. William Shatner's love life has been as dramatic as the roles he's played. His first marriage started in 1956 when he married Gloria Rand. It was during the early days of his acting career. Together they had 3 daughters: Leslie, born in 1958, Elizabeth, born in 1961, and Melanie, born in 1964. But as Shatner became famous in the late 1960s with Star Trek, their relationship started to fall apart. He admitted later that he was so busy working to support his family that he felt no joy in his marriage. They divorced in 1969, the same year Star Trek ended. In 1973, Shatner married Marcy Lafferty. They shared a love for horses and spent years breeding show horses together. Even after they divorced in 1996, their shared passion for horses remained. In fact, Shatner had to agree to send Marcy fresh, cooled semen from their prize horses after the divorce. It's a strange but true part of their story, showing how much horses were a part of their lives. His third marriage was to Noreen Kidd in 1997, and it was both loving and tragic. People warned him not to marry her because of her struggles with alcoholism, but Shatner believed he could help her. He later said, "I worshipped her and thought I could heal her." Sadly, their story ended in heartbreak. In 1999, just 2 years after they married, Shatner came home to find Noreen in their swimming pool. She had drowned. Her death was ruled an accident, and she had alcohol and Valium in her system. Shatner described how he pulled her out of the water and tried to save her. The media later spread ugly rumors that he might have been involved, which deeply hurt him. To honor Noreen, he started a foundation to help women fighting addiction. In 2001, Shatner married Elizabeth Martin. For almost 20 years, their relationship seemed stable and happy. But in 2020, they divorced. That wasn't the end, though. A few years later, they got back together. By 2024, Shatner revealed they were living together again. He said they hadn't remarried officially, but were living as partners. He described Elizabeth as the zest of life and said they had found a way to help each other through life without repeating past mistakes. Despite all the ups and downs in his marriages, Shatner has always been close to his daughters. He said his children remember him as a hands-on dad, even though he was often busy with his career. His daughters have all appeared in small roles in Star Trek-related projects, following a little in his footsteps. Shatner also loves being a grandfather. He says it's one of the greatest joys of his life because he now has the time to spend with his grandchildren, sharing stories and making memories. Through all the heartbreak and happiness, Shatner's life is a story of resilience. Even at 93, he's embracing love and family, proving that it's never too late to start a new chapter.